forget, also, what was I gonna say? Now we're going to be more detailed because you have your lab exam coming up on Thursday. So on Thursday, you have your cats, your eyes. Don't forget the ears right there. That's going to be included in your lab exam, and the sheep brain. So as far as the nervous system is concerned, you should know which one is PNS and which one is CNS. Only brain and spinal cord CNS. Everything else is PNS. The function of the nervous system, sensory, integrate, and then motor function. And the major cells of the nervous system, you have your neurons and you have your neuroglia, which are the supporting cells. As far as the neuron is concerned, you need to know the three parts, right? The dendrites, the cell body, and the axon. So the dendrites receive stimulus, then the cell body integrates. The axon propagates the action potential. So once the action potential reaches here in the terminal and bulbs right here, what happens here is the neurotransmitter is released. Not, there was a question, the neuron fires. No, the neuron fires right here. When you get here, the neurotransmitter is released. For your lab exam, you need to remember multipolar, bipolar. You remember how you define that, right? You see, just look at the cell body. How many processes come out? Many. So you say multi. Here I see only two. I call this bipolar. Here there's only one. That's why it's called unipolar. Bipolar cells are only found in your special sense organ, remember? And unipolar are only sensory in function. This one, multipolar, this is the most abundant neuron type. And they can be general, they can be motor, or they can be sensory. So you need to know what's a sensory neuron, what's a motor neuron, and then association neuron. Okay? Then your neuroglia, they do not generate action potential. They function in supporting your neurons. For your lab exam, you need to remember the neuroglia. I think the one that you need to remember is the astrocytes. That's always asked. They form scar tissue. They form the blood-brain barrier, remember? And then the ependyma is always asked because remember the ventricle, I'm going always to pull out the choroid plexus. So I always have that in the past. I don't know about your lab exam on Thursday. I always had that choroid plexus, and I ask the students identify. You say it gives you, it makes CSF, and then I'll say what neuroglia or what ventricle is dislocated and what neuroglia makes up the roof. So you're going to answer ependymal cells, okay? Then your Schwann cells, you know that it makes your myelin, and then your microglia, that's phagocytic. We're going into more detail now because of your preparing you for your lab exam also, okay? So as far as neurons are concerned, their job is to respond to any stimulus by generating action potential. So you start with the resting membrane potential of minus 70. And when there's a stimulus, you depolarize. So you should know the terms. Depolarize, hyperpolarize, okay? Threshold potential, action potential. When you generate action potential, that's because there was opening of gates from a stimulus. You open either mechanical gate or chemical gates. And then once an action potential is generated, you open voltage gates in the axon. So the axon only contains voltage gates. And what happens when that action potential reaches the end right here? The release of neurotransmitters. And you know that there's two general types, excitatory versus inhibitory neurotransmitters. So if it's an excitatory neurotransmitter that's released here, generate an excitatory postsynaptic potential. Inhibitory will generate inhibitory postsynaptic potential. Okay? When neurons are injured in the peripheral nervous system, only in the peripheral nervous system, there's possibility for regeneration. The distal stump undergoes Wallerian degeneration, then the Schwann cells will sort of form like a cast to guide the regeneration of your axons so they can meet again. Yes, Carrie.
How would that come up on a lab exam? Or would that just be more
No, it's lab exam.
So, okay. What?
There'll be questions, right? So you can maybe I'll ask what happens when they get injured. So you will say Wallerian degeneration. Okay. Okay. Next we go to chapter 12. Central nervous system, brain and spinal cord. You need to be able to identify the different parts of the brain. By the way, for your lab exam, I have models like that. So you will see models on the table with tapes pointing to the muscle. So I have other models in there. So be sure you know your human muscles. If you know your picture is the same as that one. So you just need to remember, use your list for your lab exam, okay? So for the brain, I will just use any picture and then I would say, this is the spinal cord, what's the function? Then you have your medulla. Remember the magic words? The medulla is where there's decussation of fibers, origin of 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That's your cardiorespiratory center. Then the pons. Here we become more detailed because this is what's going to be tested on in your lab exam. Okay? What are the structures that protect your brain? You have your meninges. You need to know them in order from superficial to deep. The dura, then the arachnoid, then the pia. Okay? Then you have your blood-brain barrier, your bone. What else? CSF. How is CSF formed? So this is what I mean. See, there's the choroid plexus, then there's your ependyma. Okay? So that's why that was always asked in the previous lab exams. So that's, you make CSF, see, then the CSF drips into the ventricles to see how it uh, cleans and it washes and provides nutrients also to your brain tissue. Then it drains away to the venous sinuses right here to go to the heart, and the heart will pump it, goes to the kidney, you pee out whatever waste you have. Know the different cranial nerves that come out of the different structures of the brain and how you test them. That's for your lab exam in case it comes out. For the cranial nerves, you should know which one is sensory, which one is motor, which one is mixed. Okay. Let's say your olfactory, you know that it's only sensory. So if it gets damaged, you won't be able to smell, that's all. But there's no paralysis of anything that will happen. Same with your optic nerve. They're both only sensory. That's what I mean. Okay. For the white matter right here, these are made up of axons and they make up tracts. So you should know the projection, commissural, and associate. Remember the projection, you project. So that's the one that projects from the brain all the way down. That's in fact the nerves that come out. They're the projection fibers. Then commissural fibers, they connect to the right and to the left. And association, within the same homeowners association. So just the neighbors right here. They stay within the same hemisphere. Okay? So remember your cranial nerves, how to test them. Then we go to chapter 13. By the way, I know you know, right? Sensory is afferent, motor is efferent. You should know those two terms, afferent, efferent. Okay, spinal cord and reflexes. So the spinal cord connects the peripheral nervous system with the brain, which is the seat of awareness. Okay, so this one contains your ascending afferent pathways, descending efferent or motor pathways. Afferent is sensory pathways. Okay, so there will be no more picture like this, but I hope you remember the difference between a root and a ramus for your lab exam. You should know what's a root. The root is the one that is either sensory or motor. The ramus is both sensory and motor. The ramus is the actual nerve that we're familiar with. Okay. Then your plexuses. What else for the spinal cord? The plexuses, your cervical plexus, breathing,
The orders, the first orders of the neurons.
the ventral ramus,
Wasn't there first order, second order?
that's the pathway. That's ascending pathway, yes. So cervical plexus for breathing, then your brachial plexus, brachium right here, upper arm, right? Then lumbar plexus. The lumbar plexus is on the thigh, and sacral plexus. So lumbar plexus, your problem will be in your thigh, and sacral plexus, your problem will be in your leg. Okay. Then the different receptors, chemoreceptor, thermoreceptor, nociceptor. Oh, I forgot to talk about the lobes of the cerebrum, right? In the brain, don't forget for chapter 12. In the past lab exams, I would have a cerebrum on the tray, and I'll say, identify this, and you say cerebrum. Is this the right or the left? So you're going to say maybe it's the right. And so I'll say, what is the function of this one compared to, you remember the dominance, right-brained individuals, facial recognition, artistic abilities, music. Left is more for vocal, scientific reasoning, math. Okay, right here. So if I say, if this gets injured, give me a symptom. Don't write left-sided symptoms. I know that, but I want to know, you know, that the right brain functions are different from the left brain. And then the lobes of the cerebrum. I forgot to tell you that. The occipital lobe, temporal lobe, frontal lobe, the function of the different lobes include the limbic lobe. Okay. Each and every part, the cerebellum, what does it do? The thalamus, what does it do? That's for your lab exam. Okay. Then the receptors. So once the receptors receive the stimulus, they go up sensory pathways. First order, second order, third order. These are the different pathways, ascending pathways. Then so if you have an injury in the ascending pathways, you will have anesthesia, sensory deficit, or paresthesias. But if you have an injury in the motor pathway, the descending pathway, then that involves paralysis. And you should remember flaccid versus spastic paralysis, okay? Flaccid is your limb, and then spastic is upper motor neuron damage. So this is your stiff, okay? Upper motor neuron versus lower motor neuron damage. Then reflexes. You remember your reflexes for your lab exam. Your intersegmental polysynaptic reflex, somatic reflex, cranial reflex, visceral reflex. Okay. So we will stop here. We will after your lab exam on Thursday, we pick up at chapter 14 and 15 and then we do another round again. And then what I'm going to do, I'm also going to upload a practice lab exam for you, final exam. So maybe you want to use it, maybe you don't. I'm just going to put it there on Canvas for you guys, okay? So use the rest of the time period. Your last graph for your lab exam number 3. Be sure you're very comfortable with the different muscles, structures of the brain, spinal cord, your eyes, and that ear, don't forget.